Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to another Healthy Illini podcast. As always, I'm your host, Matt Schrock, and we are into this fall semester here in 2022. Having a great time. Glad to see the activity back on campus. Glad to get the energy back on campus. Football games, volleyball games, student activities, the quad day, all the things that have been happening in the last few weeks. And today we want to talk a little bit specifically about some of that student experience, and so I'm excited to jump right into it. I'm joined today by two guests. We have Alex Sunier. He is the Senior Associate Director for Student Engagement and Assistant to the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Success, Inclusion, and Belonging. Alex, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we also have Ariana Agramonte Holterman. She's the Assistant Dean in the Student Assistance Center within the Office of the Dean of Students. Ariana, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really glad to have you both on the podcast today. You're both very passionate about what you do, have great energy with what you do, and you've been on campus for a number of years. And in doing so, you've been directly involved with students through committees, through meetings, personal interactions, just all sorts of scenarios. And the college experience is all about self-discovery, and it's a chance to grow in all kinds of aspects and learn about yourself and making friendships and connections that can last a lifetime. And it's an exciting time, but it can also be daunting at times for a lot of students, especially on a campus of our size. We're quite large. And I know you're both heavily invested and intent on helping students navigate their own paths during those years. And so that's why I wanted to have you on. The purpose of the discussion today is especially focused around the idea of hitting the ground running. That was something that you said and mentioned in our prep for this episode. And I really love that idea. I love that imagery. And so let's just start there. What do you mean by that when you're talking about the start of a new semester, especially for students new to campus? What does it mean to hit the ground running?
That's a great question. So I think for me, hitting the ground running is about building your emotional support on campus. Because although college can be a super exciting time, it can also be very stressful and overwhelming. You can feel lost as a student, especially if you're experiencing some sort of challenge or obstacle. You can feel really alone, and you think everyone else is succeeding and you're struggling and you don't understand why. And so I think when I think of the phrase hitting the ground running, it's about who am I going to go to for help? Who's my network? So that if a challenge or obstacle occurs, I know who to go to for help so that I can stay on the track.
Yeah, I think if I could add something to that, that's critically important to have a foundation there. But also, I would say, as a college student, you don't function in silos. We don't just do one thing and then that's it. The college experience is something that's well-rounded. You get your great formal education in the classroom, but it's also important to understand that a lot of the life skills that you learn that will help you post-graduation, you learn outside the classroom. So finding ways to engage is critically important. I'm just going to go say it now. Go to class. Don't skip class. You got to go to class. But number two, find somebody that knows you're here. That's where my office, in particular with student engagement, is really a great way for students to get involved so that you have the opportunity to meet people, because an institution with more than 50,000 students, there's someone to meet here and someone to know that you're here and get engaged with.
I like that you brought up the idea that oftentimes students, and all of us, not just students, look at everyone around us and go, man, they've got it together, especially on a campus that has really talented, intelligent, active, gifted people in all facets. It's really easy to sit there and go, man, everybody else has it. I'm the only one here who doesn't. When in reality, everyone is sitting here going, oh man, everyone has it. And so we're all in the same boat as that is. And you will face those challenges. And the challenges maybe in certain areas for some students and certain areas for others. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. And you're right, we're not in silos that they do cross. We interact with people, and you have some people you interact in this way and some people you interact in that way, whether it be because of classes. You don't have the same class with every single same person, that kind of thing. And so it does make a difference. So Alex, you brought it up, get connected. But I'm a student. Let's say I'm a student, first generation student in my family, or international student, or just someone that comes to this campus. Like for my own personal history, I live in my hometown now again, which is about 30 minutes south of here. My graduating class had 33 people, slightly smaller than U of I. I remember vividly coming to campus and sitting in Lincoln Hall's main auditorium, which could have housed my high school how many times over. It was a total culture shock for me, and everybody said, get involved, I didn't even know where to begin. Or for a student who's walking across campus on quad day, that can be overwhelming. It's fantastic because there's opportunities, but that's overwhelming. So from your experience, from your offices, what advice do you have for somebody to get involved and to set themselves up to succeed when those challenges do come against them?
Sure. So I think if we recognize the gamut in which our students come from, so one, either small town, two, international students. My parents are international students in the United States. The American college experience is something unique in this world. The fact that we have more than just classroom activities is important to recognize and take advantage of because, as I said, once again, go to class. But number two, there's a phrase that says it's not the grades you make, but the hands you shake that get you to where you want to go in life. Once again, go to class. But it's really these interactions that you have with people that get you connected and help you find opportunities. If you're a new student, I would even say for continuing students, I hope you took advantage of Quad. It was the largest one that we had in history of its 51 years at Illinois. But I can understand that is just huge. You just look on the Quad and you're like, there's more people here than my hometown. Yikes. And I'm hoping that maybe you had an opportunity to interact with student organizations, sign up for opportunities. You will get bombarded. If you signed up, you will most likely get bombarded with a lot of emails of join us, come to our meeting. Hey, we've got free food because, who doesn't like free food? But as a new student, I always recommend consider joining one and maybe just one organization your first semester here. And I say new, inclusive of our transfer students, because getting adjusted to such a large institution takes some time. And, at the end of the day, as I tell some of my highly involved students, your diploma is going to say University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. It's not going to say the name of your organization. So don't want you to major in the org, but once you really take advantage of the experience. So balancing it out, try one organization when you come in is a great way to start your engagement.
And I think that involvement then kind of insulates you for when something negative should occur. Mm-hmm. So for example, when I was in college, I got involved in my residence hall. So it wasn't the whole campus. I just kind of kept it small to my residence hall. And so then when something negative occurred, like an illness of my grandparent or my parents getting divorced, I had this group to kind of insulate me from the difficult things that were occurring. Or when I think about my students I've been working with through the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the ones who were connected to a student organization, or maybe even I do research with a faculty member, or I do volunteering at this organization. They had something that they really found a lot of support through and some value and some life purpose. And that really insulated them from the anxieties and uncertainties of the pandemic. And so I really think it's important for students to kind of find, their niche.
I'd like to add something to this. You bring up a really good point, is that oftentimes we think about joining entities, but the reality is people join people. So find people that have very similar likings to you, very similar interests, and that is what's going to help, to your point about almost creating this second home away from home, not replacing it, but acknowledging that we create and we need a sense of community to be able to survive, especially in large populations of this nature.
We stress a lot here on Healthy Illini that every person is on their own personal, unique journey. Mm-hmm. But with that, there are commonalities across. And so you're going to find people that you can connect with that you're not going to be exactly like them, but you're going to be like them in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And that's a comforting thing and a supportive thing. And so it does help. So you're right that finding a group that you fit into. And one of the things I love about our campus, because of the size of it, is that if you really look, you can find every student here, I firmly believe every student who's here can find someone to connect with. There is, whether you are into sports or video games or music or reading or environmental issue, whatever it may be, you can find somebody who has a common passion with you and you can connect to them that way. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to find that passion. And we'll get into that for a moment. But the other thing I really like that you brought up, Ariana, is that you mentioned, we were talking about students and organizations, but you also mentioned faculty. Your net that catches you, or your circle, doesn't have to strictly be students. Mm-hmm. And I know both of you are very passionate about helping. And so, somebody comes to you, you're not gonna be like, oh, you need to go talk to students because we separate. It's not how this is. So if a student is feeling a little intimidated by staff, faculty, whatever it may be, where do they look to kind of connect with somebody who has been there or can encourage them and offer that advice and that wisdom that they've had from previous experience?
That's such a great question. I think earlier you said something about every student is on a journey, and on any journey you need navigators or maps. And I think that's where your faculty and staff can come into play. For example, I am a PhD student as well, and so I started my PhD program, during the fall of 2020, like at the beginning of the onset of the pandemic. And so my best resources have been my faculty, like helping me think about how to apply my research topics to the work that I do on a day-to-day basis, or how to get through my online courses, or how to think about how to be a better scholar in my field have really been my faculty. So I know it can be scary to approach them, but they do sincerely want to help you. So my first recommendation is to talk to your faculty, to go to office hours, or ask for individual meetings. If your faculty's office hours conflict with your courses, you can ask for a separate meeting. And I have never had a faculty member turn me down. They've always been there for me and helped me point me in the right direction. So I know if you're scared out there, like, don't be scared. Like, go talk to your faculty and let them know when you're experiencing a challenge, because if they don't know, they can't help you. But if they do know, they can potentially accommodate you and help you with extensions or approved absences, or even extra study material if you're struggling in that course. So I really want to encourage you to talk to your faculty. And then in the student groups that you advise, many of them have staff advisors that you can approach and ask questions of, even if it's totally unrelated to the student group that you're a part of. And so I really want to encourage students to ask for help, because I think that was like the biggest mistake I made in college. And I think about how I had really wanted to study abroad, but I had just assumed that I couldn't afford it. And so I never asked, I never met with the study abroad office, I never spoke with an advisor. And if I had, I would have learned about the programs that were available that would have helped me fund me to study abroad. And so I really missed out on an opportunity because I was afraid to ask for help. And so I think my main message for this entire podcast is I really just want students to ask for help from someone, anyone.
Well, it comes back to the phrase that I've always, my whole life, I've come back to and thought about is, you don't know what you don't know. You just don't. And unless someone else imparts knowledge or wisdom upon you, oftentimes we'll miss those. And that's where staff and faculty are really good about that, because we know opportunities within, like I know opportunities here at McKinley that people don't necessarily know. And we've talked about stuff at times, hey, I need help with this. Okay, fine, let me help you. I'm happy to. Let's do this. And that's kind of the role that a lot of, especially in like student affairs and things like that, a lot of our role is to be that go-between, to be that guide, that navigator, and things like that. And so if you do have somebody, if somebody's listening, they're like, I want to talk to my professor, but I don't know how, or I'm not sure how to approach, go talk to an advisor or talk to somebody in student affairs, and we'll advocate on your behalf as best we can, or we'll find somebody that can. The staff and faculty here on campus, really, we're here because we love students. We're here because that's what drew us here to what we do, is we like helping and engaging in that. And that's just a huge key to what we do and what you guys do especially.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up your academic advisor, because my spouse is an academic advisor, and I'd be pretty remiss, maybe get in trouble, if I didn't say how important academic advisors are. They're not just there to help you pick your classes, they're also there to think about your involvement and how that connects to your courses and internships and study abroad. Like, they can really be navigators for you on your journey at Illinois. So I definitely recommend engaging the academic advisor more, like, beyond just picking classes.
Yeah. I think one thing based on what you were sharing is we do have a very welcoming number of staff members and professors. However, we also want to acknowledge that sometimes we're all humans, and sometimes maybe one of those professors or staff members are not having a good day. Maybe the way that they approach things is a little different. It might not be suitable for you, and that's okay. I think it's critical to not paint all faculty with the same brushstrokes of one bad experience. Even as a PhD student, I'm thinking of Dr. Cromley, who I believe also teaches undergrad students. So shout out to Jennifer Cromley, professor in the College of Ed. I tell you what, I don't think I've known a professor that is so passionate about a student's success over grades. They really want the students to succeed, and there are many professors out there like that. The fact that she's a very accomplished professor who publishes all the time doesn't mean that they're not in touch with humanity and that they're not accessible. And so I think give that a try. Find professors, find staff that you can connect with. You should be surprised, the most unlikely of people. Maybe it's someone that works in the dining hall. Maybe it's one of the building service workers in your residence hall when I was an undergrad. That was one of the people I talked to the most, was the person that cleaned the community restroom on my residence hall floor. So you'd be surprised where you can find assistance and connection here.
And those moments are or those connections are so key to success here, because we talked about it, that everyone has their own experience, but I can guarantee you one commonality for every single student here on campus is at some point something will be difficult, whether it be personal, academic, relational, whatever it may be. There's going to be something that comes and challenges you. And for a lot of students, when that's academic, we have extremely bright, extremely talented students, and there are some that are here on campus that have never had anything below a top grade. Mm-hmm. They've never had to really study. High school was easy. High school was laid out for them. This is how it is. You take this class and this class and this class, and you're fine. And you don't have to do any of the extra stuff as far as like study outside or do any in-depth research outside, because you're able to do it. Then you get to your chosen field here, and it's harder. And that can be a real shock to the system and a real send you into a tailspin, because you're just not sure what to do. And it's going to happen for every student. And so when that happens, in the experience you've seen, the times you've interacted with students, what's your key pieces of advice when you run into whatever it may be, a challenge comes out of the blue and just kind of hits you, and you get a little bit the wind knocked out of you? What would you advise? First steps. What do you do? How do you navigate this?
Go to office hours. It's the very first thing. Meet your professor. Even if you don't have any struggles in the first 6 weeks, you never know when that can come in handy. Professors, instructors love initiative. And yes, it is going to be challenging. This is a top world-renowned institution. There is much rigor here. You look at some of these programs, are number one in the world. There's an expectation that as a student, you should be able to perform to a certain caliber, so that when you earn that degree, because that's the key, is earning it. They don't just give degrees at Illinois. You're ready for the world. So I think it's really key. Go to office hours, meet with your professors. But I know Ariana definitely will probably have some more advice too.
Yeah, I have so much. It's so hard to boil it down. I think, honestly, the first thing that came to mind is try not to compare yourself to other people. Because I do think a lot of our students were the tops of their high school programs. And they come to college and they expect themselves to be at that same place. And they find maybe they're in a major that's not working out for them. Maybe they're underprepared for some of the courses that they were supposed to be in. Or maybe they didn't have the study skills that they should have had. There could be lots of things. You could have had a death in the family, or a financial distress, or something that is just causing you.
Or a national pandemic.
A national pandemic. Like, there is something that is happening to you it's causing you to underperform in a way that you thought. And so I think what sometimes gets my students in trouble is they'll start to compare themselves to others, and they start to think that maybe they don't belong here, or Illinois made a mistake in admitting them. I've heard students say that to me. Or they feel like, everyone else is succeeding and I'm not. And I can promise you I would not have a job at a place called the Student Assistance Center if everybody was doing great. And so it's really important for you to kind of keep yourself focused on, this is my journey, this is my path, Illinois, and really stay hyper